The tragic end of Steven Seagal's life unfolded like a scene from one of his own films, sudden, shrouded in mystery, and leaving a void that echoed through the worlds of cinema, martial arts, and global politics as his family gathered in a haze of grief to bid farewell during a funeral rite that blended American solemnity with Eastern rituals, a poignant ceremony that encapsulated the man's complex legacy while amplifying the profound sorrow they all shared. It was a crisp autumn morning in October 2025, just days after his 73rd birthday had passed quietly amid whispers of declining health, when news broke that Seagal had succumbed to complications from long-battled diabetes and heart issues, exacerbated by years of relentless international travel and the physical toll of his high-kicking heyday. The announcement came not from a glitzy press release, but from a subdued statement on his official website, confirmed by his wife, Erdenetüya Seagal, who had been by his side in their Moscow residence, a far cry from the Hollywood hills where his stardom ignited. There, in the shadow of the Kremlin, where Seagal had sought refuge and citizenship in 2016 amid mounting U.S. controversies, the man who once commanded box office billions breathed his last, surrounded by the faint scent of incense from his Buddhist altar and the distant hum of a city he had come to call a second home. His passing wasn't just the close of a chapter for one man. It was the extinguishing of a cultural flame that had burned brightly for decades, leaving behind a legacy of over 60 films, innovative fight choreography that popularized Aikido in the West, and a polarizing political activism that made him a darling of Russian state media and a pariah in Western eyes. Yet for his sprawling family, scattered across continents from Tokyo to Los Angeles, the real tragedy lay in the intimate unraveling they witnessed, the slow fade of a father, husband, and mentor who had always projected invincibility but now lay vulnerable in a private clinic, his once imposing 6'4" frame diminished by illness. Erdenetüya, the Mongolian dancer he married in 2009 after a whirlwind romance sparked during a cultural exchange, held vigil through the final nights, her hand clasped in his, whispering prayers in her native tongue as monitors beeped their inexorable countdown. Their son Kunzang, just 15 and on the cusp of his own martial arts path, sat wide-eyed in the corner, clutching a worn copy of his father's Aikido manual, unable to process the reality that the unbreakable sensei who taught him joint locks and life lessons was slipping away. From Japan, Ayako Fujitani, his daughter from his first marriage to Miyako Fujitani, flew in with her brother Kentaro Seagal, both accomplished actors in their own right. Kentaro a star of Japanese cinema, Ayako a writer and filmmaker, carrying heirlooms from their shared dojo days in Osaka, where Seagal had first forged his Eastern identity in the 1970s. Their arrival brought a flood of memories, the laughter of family sparring sessions, the stern guidance on discipline, but now laced with the bitter sting of unspoken regrets over years of distance caused by Seagal's nomadic lifestyle and tabloid-fueled estrangements. Dominic Seagal, the aspiring actor from his stormy union with Kelly LeBrock, arrived from California with sisters Arissa and Annalisa, the trio forming a poignant Halliday-esque trio of half-siblings bound by their father's chaotic Hollywood era. Arissa, ever the firebrand model and actress, wiped tears while recounting late-night script readings where Seagal's gravelly voice brought characters to life, now silenced forever. Savannah Seagal, the quiet musician from his brief liaison with Arissa Wolf, joined via video call from her European tour, her guitar idle as she sang a soft blues riff, Seagal's favorite genre, over the line, a final duet that dissolved into sobs. And then there was Annalisa, the adopted daughter, whose Mongolian roots mirrored Erdenetuya's, a bridge between Seagal's American bravado and his adopted Asian soul, who organized the blending of traditions for the rites ahead. The funeral itself, held in a hybrid ceremony, split between Moscow's Christ the Savior Cathedral for its Orthodox grandeur, a nod to Seagal's late-life Russian embrace, and a private Aikido memorial in Los Angeles' Santa Monica dojo, became a spectacle of sorrow that drew thousands, from die-hard fans clutching Under Siege posters to dignitaries like Vladimir Putin's envoy, who eulogized Seagal as a bridge of cultures in a speech laced with geopolitical subtext. In Moscow, under gray skies that mirrored the family's mood, Erdenetuya led the procession, her traditional deal robe flowing as she lit candles before icons, flanked by Kunzang, who, in a child's defiance, refused to cry until the casket, adorned with Aikido belts and film reels, closed with a final, echoing thud. The air was thick with chants from Tibetan monks Seagal had befriended during his Dalai Lama pilgrimages, their low ohms clashing hauntingly with the tolling bells, while outside, paparazzi flashes pierced the veil like spotlights on a set gone dark. Back in LA, the dojo gathering turned intimate, tatami mats stained with quiet tears as Kentaro demonstrated a flawless ikkyo throw in tribute, his voice cracking as he recalled Seagal's first lesson. Redirect the force, don't fight it. Life's the same. Ayako read from her screenplay inspired by his tales, words blurring through salt water, while Dominic and Arissa shared Polaroids from hard-to-kill shoots, laughing bitterly at Seagal's infamous ponytail phase before the grief crashed back. Annalisa scattered marigolds, invoking Mongolian spirits, and Savannah strummed a haunting melody from Seagal's own Songs from the Crystal Cave album, the notes hanging like ghosts in the incense haze. The media frenzy amplified the pain, headlines screaming, "Action icon, falls silent in Variety," Russian outlets hailing him as a patriot martyr, tabloids dredging up assault allegations that cast long shadows over the eulogies. For the family, it was a maelstrom. Erdenetuya fielding calls from Moscow officials offering state honors, while Kelly LeBrock, from afar, sent a private note of reconciliation, her own scars from their 1996 divorce reopening like old wounds. The burial at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, under a modest Aikido-etched stone, saw the clan unite one last time, hands linked across cultural divides as soil fell softly, each shovelful a reminder of the man who had dodged bullets on screen but couldn't outrun time's quiet ambush. Millions mourned globally, fans in Tokyo dojos bowing in unison, Michigan neighbors toasting the local boy made good. But for his kin, the true devastation was personal. The unfinished father-son talks with Dominic, the unshared stage dreams with Savannah, the quiet fears Kunsang harbored about inheriting a legacy tainted by scandal. Seagal's Disan, over $50 million in earnings, a blues band that fused his guitar riffs with Eastern scales, and a dojo network spanning continents, lived on in streaming cues and YouTube tributes. But the funeral's raw finality etched an immense sorrow, a heartbreaking rite where love clashed with loss, leaving echoes of what-ifs in the silence. Whispers of his final words, to Erdenetuya, a murmured "Kiotsukete," take care, haunted them, a directive from a life of deflections now powerless against mortality's grip. The world moved on, but in those vaulted cathedral pews and dojo corners, time froze in grief's unyielding hold, a profoundly sad coda to a life that had always seemed larger than it. The biggest sadness in Steven Seagal's life was undoubtedly the profound estrangement from his children during his most tumultuous years, a self-inflicted wound born of his chaotic Hollywood ascent and personal demons that left him isolated from the very family he claimed as his anchor, a hollow ache that gnawed at him through late-night meditations and solitary dojo sessions, turning triumphs into hollow echoes. It began subtly in the late 1980s, as fame's siren call pulled him deeper into a vortex of big-budget films and endless tours, but crystallized during his bitter 1994 divorce from Kelly LeBrock, the mother of 3 of his kids, Annalisa, Dominic, and Arissa, when custody battles and tabloid vitriol severed ties that once promised unbreakable bonds. Seagal, ever the stoic Aikido master, projected invulnerability on screen, but privately, the loss of daily involvement in their lives, missing Annalisa's first steps, Dominic's school plays, Arissa's budding modeling dreams, carved a chasm in his soul, one he later confessed in rare interviews as the key that escaped me, the energy I couldn't redirect. Raised in a modest Michigan home by a math teacher father and medical tech mother, Seagal had idolized family stability, drawing from his Russian Jewish and Irish German roots stories of resilience amid immigrant hardships. Yet, his own path veered into absentee fatherhood, exacerbated by affairs and legal wrangles that painted him as the villain in his ex's narratives. Kentaro and Ayako, from his first marriage to Miyako Fujitani in Japan, fared better initially, immersed in the dojo life he built in Osaka during his draft-dodging exile in the 1970s, but even they drifted as Seagal's ego ballooned. Kentaro once recounting in a Tokyo presser how his father's Western ghost overshadowed their bond, leaving Ayako to channel the pain into her feminist screenplays that subtly critiqued patriarchal absences. The adopted Annalisa, a Mongolian gift tying him to Erdenetuya's heritage, became a beacon of hope post-2009, yet Seagal's frequent Russia sojourns for Putin alliances meant missed birthdays, fueling Kunzang's quiet rebellions and Savannah's distant calls from her music gigs. This collective disconnection peaked in the 2010s amid #MeToo reckonings, when assault allegations from actresses like Jenny McCarthy and Portia de Rossi not only tarnished his name, but alienated his daughters further. Arissa publicly distancing herself in Instagram posts, Dominic ghosting family gatherings, a silence louder than any on-set outburst. Seagal, in Buddhist retreats with the Dalai Lama, sought solace in chants and chakra alignments, but the sadness lingered like a poorly executed throw, unbalanced and recurring. He poured it into blues tracks on his 2005 album, Songs from the Crystal Cave, lyrics veiled in regret over roads not walked with little feet. Friends like Jean-Claude Van Damme, despite their famed feud, hinted at Seagal's private tears during reconciliatory lunches, where he'd muse on the real enemies within, a nod to his own flaws. By 2020, tentative bridges formed, Kentaro co-starring in a low-budget flick, Ayako forgiving via a heartfelt letter. But the scars remained, a paternal void that haunted Seagal's later years, making his Moscow exile feel less like refuge and more like penance. This sadness, deeper than career slumps or political backlash, humanized the larger-than-life figure, revealing a man who mastered joint locks but couldn't grip the fleeting threads of fatherhood, a tragedy of disconnection in a life spent connecting with the world through fists and fury, fists and fury, fists and